Are we a good morning?
We are.
Indeed. Well, it is a very good morning, but I've got 5 layers of clothes on. It's freezing here, I'm telling you. And I am not used to that. What to do? I guess layer up, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I know you know. But you were in warm weather prior to, which was very nice. And I have a feeling you're in colder weather now, yeah?
Snow on the ground.
That would be cold. We don't have snow. I don't know what we would do with snow. We'd all be out there going, what is that? Anyway, I'm serious. But I grew up in Boston, so I do know snow.
Yes, you do.
And I used to ski, and oh, I loved that. Anyway, we have questions, Dr. R, and I think we have some really good ones, and I'm excited about these for my own selfish personal reasons. How about that? No, I love the women, and I'm glad that they're here. And thank you always, as I always say, for taking your time to do this with us because we really enjoy it. Okay, so I'm going to get started with good morning, Tabitha. And welcome. I am going to get started with question number 1. Many women complain that when they start taking hormones, they get acid reflux. A lot of us know what acid reflux is. It's not really very pleasant. However, a lot of women I'm finding are stating that when they're starting their hormones or are on their hormones, they're getting more acid reflux. Have you ever heard of this? And if so, can you tell us about it and maybe something we might be able to do about it?
Yes, and it's well known. And think back. So many women can relate to this. That during pregnancy they got acid reflux, and they never had it before in their life.
Right.
And the reason is there's so many different hormonal functions that take place in pregnancy, and one of them is to prepare the body for the delivery of a large child passing through the pelvis. So there are profound relaxing biochemicals released. So relaxing that it can relax the ligaments that keep the spine in really good order, and women can get backaches because they're no longer getting the spinal support. But those same ligaments loosen up that pelvis and allow the actual female pelvis to expand a little bit for the passage of the head. Lots of other things relax. The vagina needs to relax to pass a big head through it.
Well, it's not exactly the biggest place to pass a baby through, you know?
Right.
I mean, it's like an act of God, truly.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Well said.
Yeah.
And everything relaxes. Smooth muscles relax. The woman relaxes, and the lower esophageal sphincter relaxes in pregnancy. And that's where the esophagus tube links up with the stomach. There's a sphincter there that keeps the gastric acid in the stomach. And when that muscular sphincter relaxes, all of a sudden the acid gets a chance to go back up the wrong direction. And women can get heartburn in pregnancy very commonly, and very often have to sleep with elevated heads of the bed. So gravity at least keeps the acid in the stomach, and they can't eat late at night and all kinds of things. Relaxation and the relaxation chemical, the chemical that promotes pregnancy and is even named after promoting pregnancy, progesterone, progestational. So women who start taking progesterone, and it's common to overdose women in progesterone. So the first thing I wonder is, did the woman get overdosed?
But, well, yeah, we've talked about this.
It's all about progesterone. That's
Right.
the one that relaxes that lower esophageal sphincter. So the very first thing we look at is the woman being overdosed with progesterone? Because we sure want her to have progesterone, not 100% of women can tolerate it. And then what's the trade-off there? If a woman who's on progesterone is getting reflux, then you do some measures to take care of the reflux as well. And one of my favorite is don't eat after 6 o'clock at night. Give yourself a chance to digest and chew your food fabulously. I mean, chew. Go to iwonderdoctor.com and look up our videos on digestion. And, you know, I have reflux. I get it periodically, about once every 3 years, I get it. And I have elevated the head of my bed. And it's not that technically difficult to do. You put 4 2x4s. It'll raise the head of the bed 6 inches, and that slope alone is sufficient enough to keep the food by gravity staying down in the stomach. Now, I want to talk about how you deal with progesterone. I always start every single menopause method patient off on topical progesterone. It comes in organic oils. Shake the bottle, and we gradually increase the drops. And usually with topical progesterone, it's common enough that you can get a sufficient amount to give the goodies that progesterone does for the woman's body. Oh, man, does it. And at the same time, not go into reflux. And the most sensitive patient that I have, at 5 drops of the 200 milligrams per milliliter, which is really 8.7 milligrams per drop, if you know math, you could figure out what yours is.
I don't know math.
At 5 drops, she does not get reflux. At 6 drops, she does. And she's 70. And she's been doing progesterone for 20 years. And that's the most extreme case I have. There are a few women that I've seen over 25 years that they don't tolerate progesterone for different reasons. But usually women do. But what's common out there in the streets, so to speak, in the menopausal streets, if women are put on oral progesterone immediately, and there's reasons they're put on oral progesterone, but they're put on too much. For example, there's a pharmaceutical manufactured progesterone. It's even micronized. It's in some funky dyes and a peanut oil in a capsule. It's called Prometrium.
Right.
It's not my favorite, but insurance does pay for it. And they only do 100 milligram and 200 milligram sizes. And my patients, we start them off on, if I'm going to switch to the oral, that's if I'm going to switch to the oral.
That's an if.
That's an if, because we'll always start them on transdermal. And if I'm going to switch to the oral, I give them 30 capsules of 25 milligrams and 30 capsules of 50 milligrams. And most of the women, I'll start them on 50 milligrams. Occasionally, I'll start a woman on 25 milligrams. And I'll have them do that for a while. And you know, anyone who's prone to reflux, 50 milligrams or 25 milligrams is a real decent dose of progesterone. And how do I know that? Because they test out really well. And we get the results that progesterone is important to do. Like not get a thickened endometrium. And in my practice, women who I have on oral progesterone are averaging out between 50 and 75 milligrams, not 100 milligrams. Occasionally, there is a woman that'll do 100 milligrams or even 125 milligrams. That's the max in my practice, because there can be a real sleep benefit with oral progesterone, and that's in the biochemistry. But there's, you know, you see there's a lot of moving parts to anything that has to do with hormones and menopause. But where the issue is, if someone's getting reflux on hormones, they're getting it from that progesterone. And then the hope is that you can oscillate into a lower dose that does the goodies that progesterone does, including help the bones, keep the endometrial lining thin. For a woman who's on estrogen, every woman should be on estrogen. And it's just getting the dose right. And some women are so sensitive that, well, here's the individualization issue. You always hunker down on each individual woman, and you look at all the various things that relate to progesterone, what progesterone does for a woman's body, whether she's having trouble with it and getting the reflux. And then reflux itself is not like this solid diagnosis that once you get it, it's written in stone and you're always going to get it. You're going to see your reflux is going to fluctuate. maybe we could call it refluctuate.
Refluctuate.
So it's going to go through its own rhythm, a lot based on your stress and a lot based on your eating habits, because you're an adult. If you're in menopause and you don't have the same digestive power as you did when you were a kid, or when you were a teenager, when you were a young adult.
I never had acid reflux as a kid that I can ever remember.
Rarely it happens, but if you're not, so what you want to do is you want to deal well with acid reflux, which has a lot to do with digesting your food well. And I'm not going to go further into it, but if you go into iwonderdoctor.com, iwonderdoctor.com, we have a whole section on digestion, and we really do cover reflux, what to do about it.
You know, greatest videos in the world, Happy Healthy Hormones, greatest book in the world. Second to none to Estrogen Matters. I just got to put those out there. I mean, I learned so much from iwonderdoctor.com videos. I mean, I was just stuck back here. Daryl was like, are you ever coming out? I was like, no. Because I knew finally I was going to get well. Thank you, God. So thank you so much for answering that. I do get so many women that write about acid reflux, and it doesn't feel very good. And we could go on about that, but we get technical, so I'll stop there. Excuse me. I want to get to this one really quickly, and then I'll go back to the other one. This is a favorite of mine. Can you explain xenoestrogens out a bit? I do know that they are mimickers that can fit into the estrogen receptor, but how do we know which is which? Could these xenoestrogens make our tests completely off? Now, xenoestrogens meaning stuff like that we get from the air, stuff that we get from what we eat, stuff that we get from our carpet, you know, these things floating around that we aren't really quite aware of, right?
Well, the xenoestrogens, like you're walking into the description of, they're chemicals that don't belong in our body.
But they get there.
And what anyone who's ill, who came to me when I was a strict functional medicine doctor, I always looked at causes. And the causes you always look at is how's their nutrition, how's their toolkit around how they deal with the stress of life, so they don't trigger the biology of the stress response too often.
Right.
How's their exercise, and how's their toxicity exposure? Because lo and behold, 100 years ago, it's pretty clean on this planet, and every moment before that. And then they started dredging up the oil from under the earth, and it gave birth to explosive petrochemical business, plastics, fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides. You need super strong chemicals to kill a bug that's out in the farm, and to kill herbs. They don't die when you spray water on them. You need something super strong to kill them. And, you know, our environment is so loaded with chemicals that, you know, you get them everywhere. You get them. When someone is chemically sensitive, we go through their house and it's in their cleaning products. It's in what they're throwing in their dryer and their washers and their soaps. There's so many chemicals in your own household. In fact, we have people clean up their household majorly. We use baking powder, baking soda, and vinegar, distilled vinegar. These are our main cleaning products, and nothing else, because you get into trouble with all these chemicals. And it turns out a lot of them are derived from the dinosaurs that sort of gave over their bodies to oil and the petroleum industry. And think of gasoline, and think of oil, and think of how strong that thing is. And oh my God, wouldn't you know it, when these toxic chemicals enter our body, they have to be processed. They have to be handled, and they're all fat soluble. So they go into our fat tissue where they store themselves. And that includes your brain, because there's a lot of fat there. And they really give the liver a hard time. And wouldn't you know, they can actually act in our body, and they can act at the estrogen receptor site. Give me
exactly
all the crazy things that they can do in the physical body. They can act like pseudoestrogens, and that's why they're called xenoestrogens, because
right.
estrogenic effect. So let me tell you what happened in Florida. It was discovered that the Florida alligator population was declining, and they did sperm counts on the male alligators and saw that they had drastically reduced sperm counts. And why did they have that? For a couple reasons. For one thing, the water, as was discovered in Canada, has a certain amount of estrogen in it from the birth control pills getting flushed down the toilet through your urination. Women who have birth control pills are peeing out estrogen and metabolites, and there's so much widespread use of the birth control pill that these alligators were getting too much estrogen and reducing their sperm count. And they were getting it from the estrogen effect of these toxic chemicals. And it's serious. It's super serious. And, anyone who's ill, we have them detoxify, and we have them clean out their lives as many chemicals that they can get the heck out of their house. And we get down to natural organic products, because when you go into a mall, there's some people who are chemically sensitive. They can't go into a mall. They start getting headaches, and they start getting sick, and they start getting fatigued, because their body can't handle the toxicity that's floating around in a shopping mall air from all the dry cleaning stuff, all the chemicals that are in the products.
That would be Daryl. Yeah.
I'm glad to venture down this topic, because, and of all the ways that they could behave in the human body, wouldn't you know, they are stimulating that estrogen receptor site. And that's really problematic. When I was in medical school in the mid-60s, the male sperm count was in the millions and millions. And now the male sperm count, what's reported as the reference range was about 3 times higher when I was in medical school than the current reference range of American male sperm counts are. Where'd that happen from? And why are so many men getting there's many reasons why men are getting erectile dysfunction, and one of them is too much estrogens, and another one is they're losing their testosterone, just like women are losing their estrogens and testosterone and DHA, etc. So xenoestrogens, you gotta clean up, and many people have got to detoxify. And are they going to affect your tests? You can test for chemicals. They're quite expensive, and they're quite esoteric. There are laboratories that will. You send them a urine sample or a blood sample, and you're going to learn about chemicals in your body. And you don't have to go that far. If you're not well, one of the projects you do with your health coach or your functional medicine physician is you detoxify. And it's an art. You don't detoxify rapidly.
Right.
If you are detoxifying too fast and you feel ill, you're going too fast.
Right.
You can overwhelm your own liver. So when you're detoxifying with the various methods that you detoxify, you should feel pretty good. You should
Could
not
this be called like an estrogen clearance?
Pardon me?
An estrogen clearance detoxification, something like that?
Well, to get xenoestrogens out of your body, along with the rest of the chemical garbage that is in there, it's not specific. People like to think it's specific, but in general, I don't find it very specific. Like people think the DIM is going to detoxify them. I don't see that at all. I see when someone is, and we can tell on a 24-hour urine hormone test when there's detoxification problems, when the liver is not doing its job properly. We can see it. And we see too many metabolites. We see an abnormal balance of metabolites. And when I see that's happening, one of the things I want to do is I want to help the patient detoxify. Their liver's not behaving right. Why isn't their liver behaving right? Because they probably overwhelmed their liver through decades of the liver having to process chemicals and drugs and everything else that the liver has to handle. And it can get caffeine, cigarettes. It has to handle all this stuff. It's got to chemically transform them. And the liver is not eternal. And it can only take so much action. And most people, by the time they're at midlife, they've overtaxed their livers. How do you know if you've overtaxed your liver? Answer this question. Would you drink a cup of coffee at 8 o'clock at night? Could you drink a cup of coffee at 8 o'clock at night when you were 20? Yes. Could you drink a cup of coffee at 8 o'clock at night when you're 50? No. And the reason for because most people can't do that, because they'll stay awake all night. The caffeine it'll take the liver so long to dismantle that caffeine and spit it out. So and it's universal. I mean, I hardly have met a patient that could drink a cup of coffee at 8 o'clock at night, whereas they could most of them could when they were 20. That's telling us that your liver's having problems. So when I see these abnormal metabolites and these abnormal estrogens in a 24-hour urine, I'm thinking of the liver. And then I'm thinking not only of toxicity, I'm also thinking, well, the liver is downstream from the intestinal tract, and it can pick up the byproducts of things that are living in the intestinal tract and peeing and pooping that aren't our friendly acidophilus and beloved partners and synergistic with us, like these healthy bacteria. Sometimes you got other critters living in there, unhealthy bacteria, even amoeba and yeast, and they're peeing and pooping. They're eating your food.
Right. They have their own little physiological actions going on in there too.
And they're excreting stuff, so the liver's picking that stuff up too. So it all takes us. I don't want to make this too complex for you.
It's fast.
We all have health promoting projects that we can do once we start getting aware of them. And one of them is detoxifying. And to the extent that xenoestrogens are giving you trouble and gumming up your receptor sites, well, when you're working with someone who really knows what they're doing, they're going to get wind of this. And you might need to go on a detoxification program, and you may need to go on an intestinal rehabilitation program because our intestines can be out of whack.
Right. So, is that something that would show on a test?
Well, I started learning about detoxification problems and toxicity problems from the extensive medical history that we give out to every single woman in menopause. There's many questions on there that relate to liver and detoxification. And I start seeing it there, and then I'll start seeing it, usually not on blood tests. If you've got abnormal liver tests on your blood tests, that liver is not well. And that's you really want to get aggressive about helping that liver. But it's more subtle than that. And, you see it on 24-hour urine hormone tests. And bottom line, there comes a time in some patients, it's not that common, that there's a bowel project to do and a liver project to do. And liver cleanses, or you'll find them all over the internet, coffee enemas are part of that, and intestinal cleanup programs. Better you should go to someone who really knows what they're doing, a functional medicine physician. Some health coaches are really knowledgeable about this. There's a lot of chiropractic physicians who have really taken a major interest in nutrition, a lot of naturopathic physicians. Oh my God, they taught me about detoxification. So
they're teaching me right now. It's amazing. It's wonderful.
Yeah, sometimes when I get rolling, I'm concerned that you're going to get overwhelmed with information. Yeah. But I want to tell you that when you start taking on your health, there's a number of common sense projects that you can, 99% of your healing you can do by what you do in your own home and in your own life. Yes, it takes commitment. It takes, you're going to have to spend some time, like you're going to have to exercise, and you're going to have to drink enough water, and you're going to have to clean up your diet, and you're going to have to clean up your exposure to toxins. And you may even have to do such things as gut furnishing.
That stuff.
And you might even have to do some saunas. You can get a $250 home infrared sauna unit. That's
oh my God, I loved what you said about the space heater in the bathroom.
Even that will do something. And thank you for reminding me of that. One of my teachers said, detoxification of some of these petrochemicals can be as simple as you get a space heater, and not the kind that blow air, the thing that look like those old-fashioned registers they're putting out. And you stick it in a closet in a bathroom, and you can get that up to 104 degrees. And some of these volatile hydrocarbons that you've picked up, the dinosaurs in your body, the chemicals that resulted from the oil from the dinosaurs, they come out at low temperatures. You don't need these super high saunas. And then you can also purchase infrared saunas and sweat, because sweating really helps you detoxify. The skin is known in health circles as the third kidney. It's pumping out. If you can get yourself to sweat, however you do that. So what I want to say is, the great news is there's so many measures that you can take to get healthy, including getting those xenoestrogens out of your body, along with the other herbicides and pesticides and all the stuff that's in the air you go out.
Yeah, the Volt is right. But a paradigm shift is really happening, and it's good. And we have a lot of people on that, and you get into climate change and all this thing. It gets off menopause, but in a way, it does involve menopause a lot, because we don't want to put these things in our bodies that are not good for us, and especially hormonally. That's kind of scary.
Yes, it is. But it's healable.
It is healable.
Healing is possible.
Yes, it is.
You might have some things to learn. You might have some new rituals that I have to. I have rituals that I've been doing for 30, 40 years. And sometimes I feel like I've got to grab myself by my bootstraps and yank to get myself to do the thing that I know I need to do. But I always feel good when I do it. So it's
always
very rewarding. So you can do this. You have some things to learn. You have some new things to implement. And if you do it at a slow pace, you'll learn about nutrition. It'll take, if you're starting on a diet that's not healthy, in a year, you can become very expert on a very good diet. Go to I Wonder Doctor again. We cover nutrition. We cover detoxification.
That's very well done, too. It is.
It all started with a simple question that you asked, Carolyn, called, what are these xenoestrogen things? Ugh.
Well, a lot of people haven't even heard of xenoestrogens. I hadn't. Wasn't.
They bung up the estrogen receptor sites, and they can even have some activity there, and that's problematic. And that's what happened to the alligators, and that's what happened to men. And it's also bunging up women's estrogen receptor sites too. So
let us all beware.
Let us outgas. We can outgas.
Yeah, we can. We can. So, thank you for that, Dr. Rosensweet. And I'm going to move on to my next question. I see we have other questions. And welcome, everybody, my Facebook users, and Jerry, and my Facebook user. Yes, okay, you're on that. So, hi, Valerie. Anyway,
these are people.
People.
These are our people.
Our people, for sure. And
boy, if they want to be. know,
Do I
that's up
love
to
them?
them.
Huh?
That's up to them. They want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Back to progesterone, which is a hormone we always, 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 always talk about. A woman says, "Why is pee important when we're in surgical menopause?" They say that I'm better off without it. They, as in 3 or 4 or 5 doctors that this woman has seen, they say that I'm better off without it, as there are no long-term studies proving that it's safe for us who do not have uteruses. And say you what to that?
You what? I don't know how that crazy idea came to being.
It comes a lot.
And it is.
Aw. Hey, Krishna.
Hi, Krishna. It's almost biblical in the world of gynecology that, and it originated from this, that one of the many functions of progesterone is it balances estrogen. And when a woman is on estrogen in menopause, you definitely want the balance of progesterone. And if you don't have the balance of progesterone, you get a thickened endometrial lining. And it's even believed to be a precursor to endometrial cancer. So we are all rigorous when a woman's on estrogen and she's got a uterus to balance that estrogen with progesterone. Estrogen stimulates the formation of the endometrial lining. Progesterone quiets it down. If you have enough progesterone, you're not going to get a thick endometrial lining and you're not going to bleed when you're in menopause. So in that way, there's a lot of common sense that a woman needs progesterone when she's got a uterus, but somewhere it was born that if you remove a woman's uterus, you don't need progesterone, and you remove ovaries. You don't need progesterone because you're not going to form an endometrial lining. And it even became sort of a religion, which is really crazy to me, because progesterone, like any hormone in your body, has multiple functions. For example,
multiple functions, operative words.
For example, there are so many women as their progesterone starts falling, and it can start falling in your 30s, that start getting anxiety. I spoke to a woman yesterday. She never had anxiety in her whole life.
Lucky her.
She got into the perimenopause. I mean, she had the ups and downs of life, challenges of life, but she never called it anxiety. When she got into her 30s, she started getting this wild thing called anxiety. She had no reason to. She was leading a very good life because progesterone is the great calmer.
Yes.
That's not true about most of the other hormones that you can name. They're energizers. And you lose that progesterone and you lose that calm. And what do you get? What happens when you yank away the calm? You got anxiety. You get nervous.
That's awful.
And there's so many women that once you restore their progesterone, whether they have a uterus or they don't have a uterus, the anxiety goes away. Rocket surgery. Progesterone is very important for the bones. Progesterone is the only biochemical I know in the female and in the female body that supports the cells, the osteoblasts they're called, that lay down new bone. Oh, is there an issue with osteopenia and osteoporosis in menopausal women? You betcha. And in men as well. Well, progesterone is the only chemical I know that nurtures those osteoblasts and inspires them to lay down new bone. Now, not in the medical literature, not true. There is plenty of information about the multiple effects of progesterone in the medical literature. And if you download our book, you'll see in the bibliography, there's some of that. And there's a world expert on progesterone. She's a medical doctor in British Columbia. Her name is Geraldine Pryor, Pryor. So if you really are hungry for reading the medical literature, go read Dr. Pryor's stuff. And she lists the multiple functions of progesterone. So I want to say this. I'm very opinionated, and I feel very strongly about my opinions, and I respect my opinions greatly.
Well, I do too.
What I'd like to say to all of you women, you'll find out for yourself, but all of you need progesterone. Uterus, no difference. You all need progesterone. Most males, if not all males, need testosterone. Women need estrogen. Women need DHEA and testosterone and progesterone. Everyone, uterus or no uterus.
Yes.
Always.
Yes, and
It
it's
isn't
sad.
even a question.
Huh?
It's not even a question whether you need
Right. But we get told this. We did.
Well, I know there are myths that have developed in the world of menopause. There's very few menopause specialists out there. I'm one of the few that I know.
Right.
And I'm very wide. I have a widespread reach in the world of people who are treating women in menopause. And, you know, in the days when medical specialties were really forming and really being created, where neurology and surgery, well, they've always had been specialists there, orthopedic surgeons, gastroenterologists, cardiologists. This is especially in the world of internal medicine. These specialties started developing in the 80s and 90s, and they developed these medical boards, and they developed residency programs where for 3 years, people who wanted to study internal medicine or study cardiologists, you do a couple of years of internal medicine, then you do a couple of years residency in the hospitals. You get these amazing training programs. You're mentored by people who are living experts. And there's a body of knowledge called standard of care in cardiology and in gastroenterology, not in menopause. Because menopause is these other specialties were consolidating and getting more expert and more formalized. Menopause 2002, major hit.
Yeah.
From the Health Initiative, which was the false information. And so people didn't take on the specialty. I did. And there's a few others who have. So the whole body of knowledge and standard of care doesn't exist, but our team is on it. We're going for standard of care, the menopause method. But it doesn't exist now. And all these ideas kept coming out of people that they weren't specializing. They just had an idea. Well, you don't have a uterus. You don't need to suppress the endometrium. So you don't need progesterone. And for the thing that really was so amazing was that it's become like it's this law, this medical law. If you don't have a uterus, you don't need progesterone. Well, it's not a law. It's wrong. You do need progesterone. Enough said.
Yes, just let that sink in. And there are studies, and they can be findable. And just write to me, and I'll try and hook you up with some of those studies. And I know who's writing that. And I want to welcome Paula from Spain for sure. Welcome. Yeah, I mean, you see the questions better than I do, and I'm seeing them over here on your left.
Yes.
Because I think it's kind of.
Can you see them at all, Carolyn?
We have, yes, very much so. We have.
And I can scroll for you so you can see them.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Can you see me scroll off to your right?
I'm not seeing any scrolling.
Okay.
It's so strange.
I may have to read the questions then.
And I apologize about that. Some way or another, we're going to work this out.
Yeah. The one that you can see doesn't scroll. So how about if I read a question here from Tabitha?
Okay. Please.
I'm 50, had every test imaginable, biopsy, ultrasounds, etc. Still, I bleed for 5 months and only get told I'm perfectly fine, just estrogen dominant. Can't have an ablation or DNC, and my doctor refuses to do hysterectomy, only to give me a medroxyprogesterone, which hasn't worked. Help. What will stop this mess? Ooh.
Yeah.
I read it. But this is the kind of thing, Tabitha, that there are reasons why you're bleeding, and I don't have enough information about you. And this is the kind of thing that we'd have to do. You'd have to be in private consultation with someone who could sort out all the details. There's always reasons. The good news is this. You've had ultrasounds, and I'm assuming they're not normal. I mean, they're not abnormal. And you've had biopsies, and I'm assuming that they're not abnormal. That's great news. So you're in the territory called hassle. And the things I don't know is if you're taking hormones or this is all coming naturally. You're 50 years old. There's some women who are still menstruating into their 50s, even mid 50s. That's unusual. And you could be estrogen dominant. And there should be some dose of, if everything is healthy in that uterus, I can give you a general thing that you should be able to take enough micronized progesterone to suppress that endometrium. But if you're still, what I don't know about you is, did you go into menopause? And it sounds like you didn't. And it sounds like you're estrogen dominant. And can you quiet that uterus down? And how do you quiet a uterus down? Well, I can only give you general guidelines here. This is way beyond the pay grade of doing Facebook Live. I'm sorry I read the question.
Yeah.
Because we need to know more information about you. Are your periods regular? Are you giving hints of going into menopause? Because that bleeding will stop when you go into menopause. Do you have a fibroid in there? I'm assuming not, because you said the biopsies, the ultrasounds were negative. And then has adequate progesterone. Yes, I am definitely not a fan of MPA, medroxyprogesterone acetate. And so I'm sorry to tell you, let me tell you what really does matter. Find someone who's an expert at these hormones and who can evaluate a full medical workup with you. There's questions that people ask where I go, yeah, well, here's what I would do if you came into my practice. It would be 2 hours initial interview after you filled out a questionnaire, because we need to learn a lot about you.
Yeah.
And the best thing I have to say to myself is you've had some negative tests, and those are great tests to have negative. So then it's just the hassle and figuring it out. And so as much as I'm willing to say, become a member of the Menopause Method, and we'll link you up with an expert. It's either me if you're in Florida, or I'm mentoring nurse practitioners and physicians in many states thus far. And we're going to get the whole United States sooner or later, and Canada and Europe and Australia and the Earth. And then we're going to move to Mars.
I was just going to say Mars, because I have a connection on Mars.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah. I'll let you know about that later.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Great. It's the age of Aquarius now, so, a lot of those planets are open to us. There was a question. I'm sorry, I can't see it. I don't know that you want to answer it, but it had something to do with progesterone. I think pregnenolone. Okay,
I can read this. This is from Alexa.
Yeah.
I can give my usual caveat if I get into this question and then go, it's beyond Facebook Live. So this is from Alexa. This may be a dumb question. And here's what I've learned over 50 years of interviewing patients. I've never heard a dumb question.
Nope. You're but they're not.
The patient has a question. It matters.
Yes.
And what is the difference between pregnenolone, the one you can supplement, and allopregnenolone, that is a byproduct of oral progesterone supplementation? Are they related at all? This question goes on. So I'll finish the question. Progesterone cream nor compounded drops seem to work for me to help my insomnia, so I went back to taking it orally. I love that there's some profound questions in here, Alexa.
I know, huh?
Really common ones. And so I'm happy to answer this one, because this is very common experience here. I love that it helped me sleep, but did not love the long-lasting grogginess, increased appetite, and brain fog from it. 10 questions in this question. I'm wondering if going back to supplementing pregnenolone could help sleep. Then I can maybe go back to trying topical progesterone again. Well, this is quite the topic, and it's such an important one. Well, why? Well, for one reason, there is a huge percentage of women who go into menopause that start having sleep disturbance. And any of us, all of us know that all you got to do is miss a couple nights sleep and life changes for us. And if you get chronic sleep disturbance, woo-wee, that's a tough one. And here's the reason why. Here's one of the reasons why. There's a lot of reasons why people can have sleep challenges, but one of the most common ones is, I mentioned earlier, even in this Facebook Live today, that progesterone is the great calmer. That's different than estrogen, testosterone, DHEA, etc., thyroid.
Yeah.
They're different. They're animators. They can be recruited for fight or flight, not progesterone. It's the great calmer. And as I said several times, excuse me, if I were to inject the exact dose of progesterone into any one of us, male or female, intravenous, we would go to sleep. We get so relaxed, we could be put in a sleep so deep that surgery could be performed on us. And when women start losing their progesterone, as they can in their 30s, a lot of women start losing their progesterone in their 30s, they can start having sleep issues and calming issues. They get anti-calm, otherwise known as anxious or nervous. It's anti-calm. Progesterone can really relate to sleep, and when it's one of the first thing I think of when a perimenopausal woman comes in for consultation and she's having sleep issues, which are so common, the very first thing I think of is progesterone. Now, it's not the only thing I think of. And then a woman has 100 times more progesterone in her body in a normal cycle, in the second half of her cycle, than she does estrogen. Now, you think maybe the body likes progesterone? Yes, it does. And one of the things it likes it for is mood and sleep. Topical progesterone. I love topical progesterone. Every patient that I ever treat, we start with topical progesterone. And some women, they can get so much progesterone in through the organic oils drops, for example. And I was mentioning this earlier, that if they take a little bit too many drops, like I have one woman, 5 drops at night, she really likes it. 6 drops at night, she wakes up groggy. Why do you wake up groggy, Alexa? Because the dose is too high. And that's how we teach women to discover clinically their progesterone dose. So, for example, we start women out on usually 2 drops, sometimes only 1 drop at bedtime. Why do we give progesterone at bedtime? Because it can help us sleep. And we start them out on 2 drops and we have them gradually increase. And one of the things we tell them, if it helps your sleep, that's fantastic. That's one sign that you really are getting in the right territory with progesterone. If it helps you would calm down your anxiety, that's sure a great sign. However, if you titrate up to too high a dose and you wake up groggy in the morning like you had an overdose of a sleeping pill, the dose was too high. Back it down. Same goes, I think I want to take a little sidetrack here. There's women who, they started taking the progesterone at night and they started sleeping better. And then they'd show up for one of their follow-up visits with me, and they'd ask me a question. They would go like this: you know, progesterone helps me so much at night. Can I take it during the day? Would it help me with my anxiety? And what did I know 25 years ago? There wasn't a lot. No, there wasn't a lot of information out there. But I trusted progesterone so much, I said, sure, try it. And they said, well, I already have.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful for me. It helps me with my anxiety during the day. So I take progesterone twice. Well, I take it at night and I take it during the day. Now, the caveat is, and this is how I took this sidetrack, is you got to be careful when you take it during the day, because you can get groggy during the day. So don't operate your heavy machinery during the day, including drive, until you know what progesterone dose does not get you groggy if you're going to take it during the day. And it's very hard to take too much progesterone. And
right. It's one of the
you're going to get groggy. Most women are going to get groggy. And so you back it down. You back the dose down. And Alexa, that's what's happening. Now, to go back to your highly technical scientific question, I'm going to go there with you. And this will probably be the last question I have time for today.
Sorry, you guys.
But it's such an interesting question. Like all of these hormones, your body takes in raw materials and it converts biochemically. Want to believe in God, goddess, all that is? Study biochemistry. It takes your food and it's turning it into hormones. In fact, the factor out of the food you eat that is turning into hormones is cholesterol. That's in the, there's these things called biochemical roadmaps where they start with the precursors, the things that eventually get converted with the assistance of vitamins and minerals and cofactors. They go through chemical steps and then they become the thing that you want. So hormones start with cholesterol, and magically and divinely and sacredly, that cholesterol gets converted to pregnenolone. To pregnenolone.
See,
Not
that's
allopregnenolone, it gets converted to pregnenolone.
right.
And pregnenolone has some activity. And I've always made a joke. Why do we want to give women hormones in menopause? Why don't we just give everybody cholesterol? Because we don't know how to control it, and it's no guarantee. And if you don't have the cofactors and your machinery isn't working right, we have no guarantee what in the heck it's going to become. So we don't give people cholesterol, even though cholesterol is the original precursor. Can we give them pregnenolone? Well, when you look at where cholesterol gets converted to pregnenolone, and then pregnenolone gets converted down several different possibilities. Pregnenolone can wind up in any steroid hormone that you name. It could become cortisol. It could become progesterone. It could become estrogens. It could become testosterone. We can't control it. There was a time, and I hear this all the time, people were tempted. Why don't I just take pregnenolone? Because you can't control it. You don't know what it's going to become. It's not precise enough. I'm going to cut to the chase. If you are depleted in hormones, you want to take the hormone itself and not the precursors, because you can't rely on where they're going to go. And you better be prepared if you're going to take pregnenolone to do a lot of 24-hour urine hormone tests. And I've never tried to do it because I think it's a very inefficient and incorrect way to do it. But maybe in some people, they take pregnenolone and then we do a 24-hour urine hormone test and they see what hormones they are creating. Because we don't know. Is it going to become estrogen? Is it going to become testosterone? We don't have control over that, at least at this time in human history.
Yeah, there's that whole
pregnenolone itself has enough activity that it was fed to airplane pilots, airplane, the people who steal the airplanes off the tarmacs.
No, it's airplane pilots and ship pilot.
Yes, they were. Pregnenolone was given in World War II airplane pilots and factory workers. And what they learned was they became more alert and more clear and more cognitive. So pregnenolone has activity all of its own. And it's very beneficial for the brain. And of the many things that someone who's heading towards brain fog, and it's not covered by the hormones, most people will be covered by the hormones. We add pregnenolone and many other things to their regimen. But when you give someone progesterone, or your ovary puts out progesterone, in the process of progesterone being utilized, it's biochemically transformed, as is every hormone. Testosterone is biochemically transformed. Estrogens are biochemically transformed. And one of the biochemical transformation products of progesterone is pregnenolone. And one of the special gifts of oral progesterone, it produces a lot of this, and I believe it's allopregnenolone, and it has special sleep benefits. So when a woman in menopause, and now I'm sorry to cloud up the field so much, the simple thing is when a woman in menopause is having sleep disturbance, she's low on progesterone. She's got almost zip progesterone, especially compared to when she was menstruating, when she was younger. You give her progesterone. And if I always love topical, but if the topical does not address the sleep disturbance, I turn to oral. And as I was mentioning earlier in this program, I start with 2 bottles. Each have 30 capsules. One of the milligram strength is 25 milligrams. Another milligram strength is 50 milligrams. and I'll start some women on 50 milligrams, and I'll start some women on 25 milligrams, and I'll have them gradually increase by 25 milligrams and see if we can help their sleep. And what's happened to you, Alexa, I'm almost certain, is that the reason you're waking up groggy is you just got too much. So you back the dose down. And who can do that for you? Compounding pharmacists can prepare, under the direction of a healthcare provider, the proper prescription so you can get it accurate. And if you're using Prometrium, you switched to the oral. Well, the question is, my guess is you're on too many milligrams. So I think I've answered just about everything in that question. There's more. Increased appetite and brain fog from it. Well, you're going to get foggy from too much progesterone. You're going to get groggy, so that you're going to back the dose down. People are concerned in menopause that the weight gain is coming from taking estrogen or taking progesterone. It is not. It's coming from insufficient hormones. For example, for thyroid hormone to work at its absolute optimal, you have to have adequate progesterone. And thyroid hormone is very influential in metabolism. In other words, if you have enough thyroid hormone, that's one of the reasons you have a shot at having proper biochemical processing that results in you having sufficient energy.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, I just figured this out. It was quite a while ago, but I always wondered what the magic was, why a woman who wanted to get pregnant would take her temperature every morning. And if she ovulated, and this is how she could tell if she ovulated, she would get an increased temperature, usually mid-month.
Right.
Well, why does the temperature increase mid-month? Well, obviously, it's because she ovulated, because if she doesn't ovulate, she will not get that temperature increase. And what causes that temperature increase at first blush is the progesterone that skyrockets mid-cycle. If you ovulate, and that's the only way you're going to get progesterone of any magnitude, you have to ovulate. And if you ovulate, you're going to put out this huge amount of progesterone. But why the temperature increases is because progesterone facilitates the action of thyroid hormone in thyroid hormone receptor sites. Thyroid hormone works better. Thyroid hormone works better, you get more energy and we get more heat. You get more metabolism. So the short version of weight gain as it relates to hormone, it relates to many other things as well, is you got to get the hormones right. If you have too little or you have too much, you're going to get into problems. So one of the things that we're rigorous about in the menopause method is getting your hormones into the optimal zones. And we know what those are, and we've extrapolated those from the medical literature. So anytime a woman is gaining weight when she started hormones, something's wrong. Because young women, 20-year-old women, for the most part, unless they've got other issues going on, they don't gain weight. And they got these humongous amounts of hormones compared to any other time in their life. It's not hormones that make you gain the weight. It's too little, and your metabolism's not working well. Or it's too much, and that gets you into different kinds of problems. So the moral of the story is, when you go into menopause, and it always comes down to this, get yourself an expert. Learn some things about it. Read my book. Read Dr. Blooming's book. But get yourself someone who's specializing in this, and they'll know how to dial those hormones in to the optimal level. And oh my goodness, Carolyn Shapiro, it's the end of the year.
How can that possibly be?
We have one more Facebook Live this year, actually. It's on Thursday morning.
We do.
I'm going to sign off for today because I have another commitment. And as always, it's
surprise.
It's a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure, Dr. R. And hello, Rod. Hello, Kathy. And to all the women, a lot of times we have these questions. If you don't mind resending them to me, I am more than happy to write them down and ask them. because I have a special book.
So what should they do, Carolyn? Should they email you or put them up on the Facebook?
They can go ahead and put them up on the ins and outs of menopause with David
Yeah.
Rosenfeld, MD. No problem. I get them. And she says, thank you for the great explanation on the progesterone pregnenolone question. So there are a lot of questions that we didn't answer, but we always have fun. We do get to them, and I won't wish you a happy new year yet because we can do that on Thursday. So I'm going to wish you a really, really good day. I'm going to wish all the women a really, really good day. Tell you it was my pleasure to have you here in my room with me today. Always
you always make it fun.
Yep. Always make it fun. So you have a wonderful day, Dr. R. God bless.
And everybody.
We will see you on Thursday. Write down those questions for me, and we'll get to them, and we'll just keep it moving.
All right.
All right.